Far above the blue oceans of the distant planet Asteron, a small human shuttle moved slowly through the dark sky. Inside the shuttle sat Ethan Cole, a young human explorer and former soldier. He looked out the window at the strange alien world below him. Tall silver towers stood in the middle of ancient ruins. Glowing rivers of energy flowed between broken buildings, and silent storms moved across the sky like dark waves. Ethan had visited many strange places before, but something about this planet felt different. It felt quiet in a way that made his instincts nervous. As the shuttle landed on a cracked landing platform outside the abandoned alien city, Ethan stepped out carefully, his boots touching the dusty metal ground. His scanner beeped softly in his hand as it searched for signs of life. But the city looked empty, ancient, and forgotten. Ethan walked slowly between tall alien structures that looked like giant glass trees. Their surfaces reflected the dim light of the planet's twin moons. The wind moved through the empty streets, making a low whispering sound. Almost everything here was silent, but Ethan could feel that the silence was not natural. Something had happened here long ago, something powerful enough to erase an entire civilization. He moved deeper into the city, recording data for the Human Exploration Program. His mission was simple: explore, collect information, and return safely. But simple missions rarely stayed simple in the galaxy. Suddenly, his scanner gave a loud warning beep. Ethan stopped walking immediately. His soldier instincts returned in a second. He looked around carefully and placed his hand on the small plasma pistol on his belt. The warning signal was getting stronger. Something was approaching fast. Then the quiet sky suddenly exploded with noise. A group of dark metal drones rushed out from behind the ruined towers. Their red scanning lights flashed across the street as they searched for a target. Ethan quickly moved behind a broken wall as the machines passed overhead. His heart beat faster as he watched them. These were not normal security drones. These were military hunter drones, and they were armed. Ethan whispered to himself that something was very wrong. An abandoned city should not have active war machines. Before he could think further, another sound filled the air. This time it was the roar of engines. Several sleek alien ships rushed down from the clouds and landed in the center of the city plaza. Their doors opened and armored soldiers rushed out. Their armor carried the symbol of the Zareth Dominion, one of the most aggressive empires in the galaxy. Ethan knew their reputation well. They conquered worlds and took prisoners without mercy. He quietly activated his communicator to record everything. Because this was no longer just exploration, this was the beginning of something dangerous. Then Ethan saw something even stranger. In the middle of the plaza, another ship had landed. But this one looked different. It was elegant and white, decorated with glowing blue royal markings, a royal convoy. Ethan realized someone very important was here. Before he could understand why, explosions suddenly shook the plaza. Zareth soldiers opened fire on the white ship. Laser blasts filled the air, and the royal guards tried to defend their position. The quiet city instantly became a battlefield. Ethan watched from his hiding place, trying to understand what was happening, but when he saw several enemy soldiers rushing toward the royal ship entrance, he made a decision. Even though he was only one human against many trained soldiers, Ethan could not stand by and watch an innocent person be captured. He moved quickly across the broken streets, staying in the shadows as he approached the fight. When the first Zareth soldier turned the corner, Ethan acted fast. A single accurate shot from his pistol knocked the soldier down before he could react. Two more soldiers rushed forward, but Ethan used the ruins as cover and stopped them with quick movements and careful aim. The battle was chaotic, but Ethan's training kept him calm. Slowly, he pushed the attackers away from the royal ship, giving the guards time to recover. A few minutes later, the shooting stopped. Smoke drifted across the plaza as the remaining enemy soldiers retreated back to their ships. The sudden battle had ended almost as quickly as it began. Ethan lowered his weapon and looked around carefully. Royal guards slowly came out from their positions, surprised to see a human standing among them. Then the door of the white ship opened again, and someone stepped outside. She was young, wearing elegant royal clothing that shined softly under the moonlight. Her silver hair moved gently in the wind, and a small crown rested on her head. It was clear immediately that she was not just important, she was royalty. The guard stepped aside respectfully as she walked forward. Her eyes moved across the battlefield until they stopped on Ethan. For a moment, she froze completely. Her eyes became wide with shock and emotion. Then suddenly she ran toward him without hesitation. Before Ethan could even react, she reached him and threw her arms around him tightly, holding him as if she had been waiting for this moment for years. Her voice was soft and filled with relief as she whispered, "I thought I would never see you again." Ethan stood there completely confused because he had never seen this princess before in his life. And far above the ruined city, hidden ships were already watching everything that had just happened, waiting for the next move in a much larger game. And before the story continues, if you enjoy stories like this, please gently support the journey by subscribing to the channel, because many more adventures are still waiting ahead. The cold wind moved slowly through the broken alien city, while the smoke from the recent battle still drifted across the empty plaza. Ethan Cole stood completely still as the young princess held him tightly. Her arms were shaking slightly, as if she had just escaped a terrible nightmare. Ethan could feel the guards watching him carefully, their weapons still ready, unsure if this human stranger was truly a hero or a hidden danger. Ethan gently stepped back, still confused by what had just happened. The princess looked up at him again, her bright eyes filled with emotion and disbelief, as if she was looking at someone who had returned from the dead. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt heavy. Ethan finally broke it with a calm but uncertain voice. He told her that there must be some mistake because they had never met before. But when the princess heard those words, her expression slowly changed from relief to confusion. She studied his face carefully, as if she was searching for something deeper than just his appearance. The guards moved closer, forming a protective circle around her, but she raised her hands softly too. "Stop them." Her voice was quiet but firm when she spoke again. She said his name slowly, "Ethan." That surprised him even more, because he had never told anyone here his name. He asked her how she knew who he was. The princess seemed just as confused now. She stepped back slightly, trying to understand the strange situation. After a few seconds, she turned to her guards and ordered them to prepare the ship for departure. This place was no longer safe. The Zareth Dominion had already shown their interest, and they would not give up easily. Within minutes, the royal guards guided Ethan toward the elegant white ship. Some of them looked at him with curiosity, while others clearly did not trust him. To them, he was just a human, and humans were still new and mysterious in the galaxy. The ship lifted into the dark sky and quickly left the ruined city behind. Inside the ship, the atmosphere felt tense. The guard stayed silent while the princess sat across from Ethan in a private chamber. The room was beautiful and calm. Glowing blue lights moved softly across the walls, but Ethan could feel the weight of the moment growing heavier. Finally, the princess spoke again. Her name was Princess Lyara, heir to the Arenthian Star Empire, one of the oldest and most powerful civilizations in this region of space. Her voice was steady now, but there was still deep emotion hidden beneath her calm words. She explained that many years ago, when she was only a small child, her life had changed forever. At that time, the Arenthian Empire was already powerful, but power always attracts enemies. One night, while her family's royal transport was traveling through a quiet star system, a group of space pirates attacked without warning. The ship was destroyed in the chaos, and young Liara was taken away before the royal guards could stop them. She spent many terrifying days trapped on the pirate ship, far away from home, surrounded by criminals who planned to sell her to the highest bidder in the black markets of the galaxy. As she told the story, her voice grew softer, because those memories were still painful. She explained that during one desperate moment, something unexpected happened. The pirate ship was suddenly attacked by a single fighter craft. The ship was small and heavily damaged, but the pilot fought like someone who had nothing to lose. The pirates laughed at first because it was only one fighter against their entire ship, but the pilot kept attacking again and again, until the pirates were forced to focus on defending themselves. In the middle of the chaos, the mysterious pilot boarded the pirate ship alone. Lyara remembered that moment clearly even after so many years. She said the man wore simple human armor, scratched and damaged from many battles. His face was serious but calm, and his eyes carried a quiet strength that made her feel safe immediately. He fought through the pirates one by one and finally reached the small prison room where she was held. Without wasting time, he freed her and carried her back to his fighter ship while alarms screamed through the pirate vessel. Lyara explained that the man managed to escape just seconds before the pirate ship exploded behind them. He took her safely to a nearby Orinthian patrol station, but before the royal fleet arrived, he disappeared quietly into space without asking for any reward or recognition. The only thing he left behind was a small military badge with a human name on it. When Lyara finished speaking, she slowly looked at Ethan again. Her voice became emotional as she said the name written on that badge had stayed in her memory ever since. It was the name of the man who had saved her life, the man she had believed she would never see again. Daniel Cole, she said softly. Ethan felt the air leave his lungs as soon as he heard that name, because Daniel Cole was not a stranger to him. Daniel Cole was his father. But according to every official record Ethan had ever seen, his father had died years ago during a classified mission far away from this part of the galaxy. The room fell into complete silence as both of them realized something impossible was happening. And somewhere far away in deep space, hidden warships from the Zareth Dominion were already changing their course, moving slowly toward the Orinthian Empire, because now they had confirmed something very important. The son of the man they had been hunting for years had finally appeared, and the galaxy was about to become a much more dangerous place for Ethan Cole. The royal ship moved silently through the endless darkness of space while Ethan Cole sat near the large observation window, watching distant stars slowly pass by like small glowing rivers. His mind was filled with confusion after hearing the name Daniel Cole, because that name had shaped his entire life. His father had always been a mystery to him. Official reports said Commander Daniel Cole had died during a secret mission many years ago. The military had never explained the details, and Ethan had learned long ago that some questions in the galaxy were never answered. But now a princess from a powerful alien empire was telling him a completely different story, one where his father had been alive, fighting pirates, and secretly saving royal lives. Across the room, Princess Lyara stood quietly, her eyes still resting on Ethan with curiosity and wonder. She had spent years remembering the face of the man who saved her when she was a frightened child, and when she saw Ethan on that ruined planet, something inside her heart had immediately recognized him. But now she understood the truth was far more complicated. The man who saved her had been Ethan's father. Yet the resemblance between them was almost identical. Their eyes, their voice, even. Their calm way of standing during danger felt strangely familiar. It was like seeing the past return in another form. The ship soon approached the capital world of the Orinthian Empire, a magnificent planet called Orinthos. From space, it looked like a shining jewel surrounded by thousands of orbiting cities and defense stations. Bright golden lights covered the continents, and massive starships moved slowly around the planet like silent guardians. It was one of the most advanced civilizations in the known galaxy, and its people had ruled peacefully for thousands of years. But even a peaceful empire had enemies, and now those enemies were becoming restless. As the royal ship entered the planet's atmosphere, Ethan noticed something strange through the window. Several large warships were already waiting in orbit. Their cannons slowly turned as the royal vessel passed by, and their scanners studied Ethan's ship carefully. Lyara noticed his attention and calmly explained that the Empire had increased its defenses after the recent attack. But Ethan sensed another reason as well. Something about the way those ships watched them felt less like protection and more like suspicion. When the ship landed at the royal palace, hundreds of guards and officials were already waiting. The palace itself was enormous, built from glowing white stone that reflected the light of the planet's twin suns. Tall towers reached into the sky like crystal mountains, and wide gardens filled with strange alien plants surrounded the entrance. But the beauty of the palace could not hide the tension in the air. News about the attack had already spread across the capital, and rumors were moving faster than the truth. As Ethan stepped out of the ship beside Princess Lyara, the crowd of royal advisors and military commanders immediately noticed him. Their expressions changed quickly. Some looked shocked, others looked angry, and many looked deeply suspicious. The reason was simple. Ethan was human, and in many parts of the galaxy humans were not trusted. Humanity was still new among the stars. Compared to ancient empires like the Orenthians, humans had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. Their technology was impressive, but their history was full of wars and sudden expansion. Many alien civilizations believed humans were unpredictable, aggressive, and dangerous. Some even believed humans would one day try to conquer the galaxy itself. Because of this reputation, humans were rarely welcomed inside powerful governments, especially royal palaces. Whispers quickly spread through the gathered crowd as Ethan walked beside the princess. Some of the officials clearly did not like what they were seeing. One of the senior commanders stepped forward with a cold expression and questioned why a human soldier was standing so close to the future ruler of the empire. His voice carried clear accusation as he asked if the human had somehow been involved in the attack earlier that day. The question made several guards tighten their grip on their weapons, and the atmosphere instantly became dangerous. Before Ethan could respond, Princess Lyara stepped forward with surprising strength in her voice. She told everyone clearly that Ethan had saved her life during the attack on the ruined city. Without him, the Zareth Dominion soldiers would have captured her. Her words filled the palace entrance with silence, because accusing someone who had just saved the princess was a serious mistake. Yet even after hearing this, many of the advisors still looked uncomfortable. Their distrust of humans was deeply rooted, and a single heroic act was not enough to erase years of suspicion. The emperor himself was not present at the landing, but his council quickly gathered to discuss the situation. While they argued inside the palace halls, Ethan stood quietly beside Lyara, aware that every eye in the room was studying him. Some of the guards seemed impressed by his calm behavior, but others still believed something was wrong about this entire situation. After all, the timing was strange. A human appearing exactly when the princess was attacked. A human who looked exactly like the mysterious soldier who had saved her years ago. To suspicious minds, it looked less like coincidence and more like a carefully planned operation. Later that evening, Lyara made an unexpected decision that shocked many members of the royal court. She officially requested that Ethan remain inside the palace as her personal protector until the investigation into the attack was finished. Her reason was simple. The enemy had already shown they were willing to risk open war to capture her, and she trusted the man who had already saved her life once that day. But this decision created even more tension among the empire's leaders, because placing a human so close to the royal family was something that had never happened before. While the palace council continued their secret debates deep inside the towering halls of power, Ethan walked alone through a quiet balcony overlooking the glowing capital city. The lights of Orinthos stretched across the horizon like a sea of stars. Beautiful but distant, he understood that many people here did not trust him, and maybe they had reasons for their fear. Humanity was still proving its place in the galaxy. But Ethan also knew something else. Someone had attacked the princess with a very specific goal, someone powerful enough to risk war with the Orenthian Empire. And now that same enemy knew Ethan coexisted. High above the capital world, hidden behind the shadow of a distant moon, several dark Zareth Dominion warships floated silently in space. Their commanders studied the latest intelligence reports carefully. One officer pointed to the image of Ethan on the screen and spoke a single sentence that filled the room with quiet excitement. "The son of Daniel Cole has appeared." The commander slowly smiled as a dangerous plan began forming in his mind. Because if Ethan Cole truly carried the same secrets as his father, then capturing him might be far more valuable than capturing the princess herself. And across the shining empire below, Ethan still had no idea that the entire galaxy was slowly turning its attention toward him. Night slowly covered the shining capital of Orinthos, but inside the royal palace the lights never turned off. The enormous halls remained alive with quiet movement as guards walked their patrol routes and advisors whispered behind closed doors. The attack on Princess Lyara had shaken the entire empire. and every leader now feared that something far more dangerous was hidden behind that single battle in the ruined city. Ethan Cole stood on a high balcony overlooking the endless lights of the capital. The city below looked peaceful, but he knew peace in the galaxy was often just an illusion waiting to break. For the last several hours, the Palace Council had been arguing about him. Some leaders believed Ethan was a hero who had saved the princess, while others believed his appearance was too suspicious to ignore. Humans already carried a difficult reputation among alien civilizations, and now a human had suddenly appeared in the middle of a royal attack connected to one of the most dangerous empires in the galaxy. For many politicians, this was not bravery. It was a possible threat. Ethan understood their fear, but he also understood something else. The attack earlier that day had not felt random. It had felt planned, precise, and confident. The Xerath Dominion had not simply attacked a princess by chance. Someone had given them information. A quiet sound behind him interrupted his thoughts. Ethan turned and saw Princess Lyara stepping onto the balcony. She had changed out of her royal armor and now wore simple silver clothing that moved softly in the night wind. For a moment, she looked less like a ruler and more like a normal young woman carrying the weight of too many responsibilities. She walked beside Ethan and rested her hands on the balcony rail while looking down at the glowing city. After a long silence, she spoke quietly, telling Ethan that the Palace Council was divided about him. Many people did not trust a human standing so close to the future ruler of the empire. Ethan gave a small, calm smile and said he was not surprised. Distrust was something humans had learned to live with since they entered the larger galaxy. But he also told her something important. The attack earlier that day had not felt like a simple kidnapping attempt. The soldiers who attacked had known exactly where her ship would land, exactly how many guards she had, and exactly when the city would be empty. That kind of information did not come from guessing. It came from someone who already knew the plan, someone close to the palace. Lyara slowly turned toward him as the meaning of his words settled in her mind. The possibility was frightening, but impossible to ignore. If someone inside the Empire had secretly helped the Xerath Dominion, then the danger surrounding her was far greater than anyone realized. The enemy would not stop after one failed attempt. They would attack again, and next time, they might be even more prepared. Determined to understand the truth, Ethan began quietly investigating the events of the attack. The palace security systems had recorded everything from the moment the royal ship entered the atmosphere to the moment the Xerath soldiers retreated. Ethan spent hours studying the recordings, watching every movement, every ship path, every communication signal that had passed through the system. At first, nothing looked unusual. The enemy ships appeared suddenly and attacked directly, but then Ethan noticed something strange hidden inside the data. One of the palace communication channels had been used just minutes before the attack began. The signal was short and carefully encrypted, but its destination was not inside the Orenthian Empire. The signal had been sent far beyond the borders of the Empire, directly toward a region of space controlled by the Xerath Dominion. Ethan leaned back in his chair as the meaning became clear. Someone inside the palace had sent a message to the enemy just before the attack. The discovery made the situation far more dangerous, because it meant the enemy had help from someone who understood the Empire's security systems, someone powerful enough to hide their actions inside the palace network. Ethan knew exposing a traitor inside a royal government was not simple. If the wrong person learned he was investigating, the traitor might strike again before the truth could be revealed. Late that night, Ethan secretly met Lyara again in a quiet strategy room deep inside the palace. He showed her the hidden signal and explained what it meant. The princess listened carefully, her face becoming more serious with each word. The idea that someone inside her own empire was helping the enemy felt like betrayal on a personal level, but she understood the reality of power. Even ancient empires could hide dangerous secrets inside their own walls. Together, they began studying the list of people who had access to the palace communication network during the attack. The list included many high-ranking officials, military commanders, and security leaders. Any one of them could have sent a message. But as Ethan continued searching through old records, he discovered something even stranger connected to the past. While reviewing ancient mission archives connected to the name Daniel Cole, Ethan found a classified report from many years ago. The report described a human pilot who had interfered with a pirate operation near Orinthian territory. The pilot had destroyed the pirate ship and rescued a high-value hostage. The report ended with a short but shocking note written by an Orinthian intelligence officer. The note said the human pilot had been investigating a secret alliance forming between certain members of the Orinthian military and outside forces. Ethan stared at the screen as the connection formed in his mind. His father had not just rescued Princess Lyara years ago. He had been investigating a conspiracy inside the Orinthian Empire, which meant the traitor helping the Zareth Dominion today might be connected to the same conspiracy his father discovered long ago. The room felt colder as the realization grew heavier, because if the conspiracy had existed for so many years, then the person behind it must be extremely powerful enough to hide their actions even from the Emperor himself. Far away in the dark space beyond Orinthos, the hidden Zareth warships continued watching the shining planet below. Inside one command chamber, a tall armored officer studied the latest intelligence reports carefully. He slowly tapped the image of Ethan Cole on the glowing screen and spoke with quiet confidence. Daniel Cole tried to expose the truth years ago, the officer said calmly. Now his son is getting closer to the same secret. The officer's eyes narrowed slightly as he gave the next order. Prepare the next phase. And deep inside the royal palace of Orinthos, Ethan Cole had just begun walking directly toward a conspiracy powerful enough to start a war across the entire galaxy. The quiet halls of the Orinthian royal palace felt heavier than ever after Ethan Cole discovered the hidden report connected to his father. The glowing data screen still floated in front of him inside the palace intelligence room, its soft blue light reflecting across his face while his thoughts moved rapidly through years of unanswered questions. For most of his life, Ethan had believed his father died during a distant classified mission. The human military had closed the case quickly and told him that Commander Daniel Cole was lost during deep space operations. No body was ever recovered and no detailed report was ever released. At the time, Ethan had accepted the explanation because there was nothing else he could do. But now the pieces of the past were slowly shifting into a very different picture. The report he had discovered inside the Orinthian archives told a much deeper story. Years ago, his father had been moving through this same region of space, investigating a hidden alliance between unknown forces. The report did not name the people involved, but it clearly suggested that someone powerful inside the Orinthian Empire had been secretly working with criminals and outside war factions. Ethan leaned back in the chair and stared at the ceiling. If his father had been close to discovering the truth back then, that could explain why he suddenly disappeared. Someone may have decided that Daniel Cole knew too much. Footsteps echoed softly through the hallway as Princess Lyara entered the room. She had also been unable to sleep after learning about the possible traitor inside her empire. Her silver hair moved slightly as she stepped closer to the glowing screen, studying the report that Ethan had uncovered. For several seconds, she said nothing. Her mind was clearly processing the weight of the discovery. If the conspiracy connected to the attack truly went back many years, then the danger surrounding the throne was far greater than anyone imagined. Lyara slowly looked toward Ethan and asked the question that had been forming in her mind ever since the battle in the ruined city. She asked if Ethan had ever heard anything unusual about his father before his disappearance. Ethan remained silent for a moment before answering honestly. When he was a child, his father had always seemed like a normal soldier, disciplined and calm, but there had always been small things that felt strange. Daniel Cole often disappeared for long missions that no one could explain. Sometimes he returned with injuries that he refused to discuss, and other times he simply spent long hours studying star maps and encrypted messages. At the time, Ethan had believed those secrets were simply part of military life, but now those memories felt much more important. Lyara turned back to the data screen and carefully scrolled through the archive records again. Suddenly, another small detail caught her attention. The report listed a final known location for Daniel Cole after the pirate rescue mission many years ago. It was not inside human territory and not inside Orinthian space either. The location pointed toward a distant star system that was rarely visited by any government ships. A quiet and mostly forgotten system located far beyond normal trade routes. The system was called Valkyris. Ethan felt a strange tension rise inside him when he saw the name of the system. Something about it felt important, as if the memory was hiding somewhere in the back of his mind waiting to be discovered. Then slowly another memory surfaced, years ago before his father left for his final mission. Daniel Cole had given Ethan a small metal pendant as a gift. The pendant carried an unusual star map engraved on its surface. At the time, Ethan thought it was simply a decoration, but now he realized. The map looked very similar to the star system labeled Valkyris in the archive file. Without wasting time, Ethan reached into the pocket of his jacket and removed the old pendant he still carried with him after all these years. The metal surface was worn from age, but the engraved star pattern was still clear. Lyara leaned closer and compared the pattern with the digital map on the screen. After a few seconds, her eyes widened slightly. The shapes matched perfectly. The pendant was not just a decoration. It was a navigation marker pointing directly toward the Valkyris system. The discovery filled the room with heavy silence as both of them realized the same possibility. Daniel Cole may have left that pendant as a hidden message for his son, a message that would only make sense years later when Ethan was old enough to understand the truth. If that was correct, then his father may have known that someone powerful was hunting him, someone dangerous enough to erase him from official history. Before either of them could speak again, the palace alarm system suddenly activated. A deep warning tone echoed through the corridors while red lights flashed across the walls. The calm night atmosphere instantly turned into organized chaos as guards began moving quickly through the halls. Ethan and Lyara rushed toward the nearest communication panel, where a palace officer was already receiving incoming reports from the outer defense stations. The officer's voice carried clear urgency as he explained what had just happened. Several unknown ships had appeared near the outer edge of the Orenthian star system. Their signatures matched the warships of the Zareth Dominion. The enemy fleet had finally revealed itself. Ethan felt a cold realization settle in his chest. The enemy had not come simply for the princess anymore. They had waited patiently until the moment Ethan began uncovering the truth about his father. Now they were moving openly toward the Empire. High above the shining world of Orenthos, massive Zareth warships slowly moved out of hyperspace like dark shadows entering the light. Their weapons powered up one by one, while smaller fighter squadrons formed attack formations around them. Inside the command ship, the Zareth commander studied the latest intelligence report with quiet satisfaction. The report confirmed that Ethan Cole had accessed the ancient Orenthian archive files only minutes earlier. The commander folded his hands behind his back and smiled slightly. His plan was unfolding exactly as expected. Because once Ethan discovered the truth about Daniel Cole, he would naturally search for the location hidden inside the old records. And the moment Ethan followed that path, he would lead them directly to the secret that Daniel Cole had died protecting. The commander looked at the glowing image of the Valkyris star system on the screen and spoke calmly to the officers around him. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered quietly. "Soon the sun will take us to the Father's final secret." And far below on the capital world, Ethan Cole was only beginning to understand that the mystery of his father was far bigger than his own past. It was a secret powerful enough to pull entire empires toward war. The warning alarms continued echoing through the massive halls of the Orenthian royal palace, while the peaceful night of the capital world suddenly turned into a moment of rising panic. Red emergency lights flashed across the tall crystal walls as guards rushed through the corridors and communication officers shouted urgent reports into their consoles. Ethan Cole stood beside Princess Lyara inside the central command chamber while large holographic screens filled the air above them. Each screen displayed the same frightening image. A fleet of dark warships from the Zareth Dominion had appeared at the edge of the star system. Their massive hulls moved slowly through space like silent predators approaching their prey. Outside the atmosphere of Orenthos, the Empire's defense fleet was already preparing for battle. Hundreds of Orenthian starships moved into formation around the planet. While their shields activated and weapon systems powered up, The bright, peaceful world below suddenly looked like a fortress preparing for a storm. Ethan watched the tactical display carefully as commanders discussed strategies across the room. He could see that the Zareth fleet was not large enough to destroy the Empire's capital directly, but they were clearly strong enough to start a devastating conflict. Princess Lyara stood calmly beside the central command table, even though the tension in the room was growing heavier with every second. The leaders of the Empire had gathered quickly after the alarms began. Military generals, advisors, and intelligence officers filled the chamber, each of them studying the incoming fleet with serious expressions. Some of the same officials who had questioned Ethan earlier now looked even more suspicious of him, because the timing felt too strange. The enemy fleet arrived only hours after the human soldier began investigating the old archives connected to Daniel Cole. One senior general finally stepped forward and spoke directly toward the princess. His voice was firm and filled with concern as he suggested that the Empire should immediately detain Ethan until the situation became clearer. Several officers nodded in agreement, believing that the safest option was to remove the human from the palace until the enemy threat was understood. The accusation hung in the air like a dark cloud. Ethan remained silent while the discussion continued. He understood their fear, even if the situation was unfair. But before the argument could grow further, Princess Lyara raised her voice with calm authority that silenced the entire chamber. She reminded everyone that Ethan had already risked his life to save her during the attack on the ruined city. If the Zareth Dominion truly wanted him captured, then that only proved he was not their ally. Her words carried the strength of a future ruler. And slowly the room became quiet again. At that exact moment, a new report arrived from the outer defense stations. The Zareth fleet had launched fighter squadrons and was beginning an aggressive approach toward the planet's orbital defense grid. The battle had begun. The giant holographic display shifted as hundreds of small red lights appeared around the incoming fleet, representing enemy fighter ships moving rapidly through space. In response, the Orenthian Defense Fleet released its own squadrons of sleek interceptor ships that rushed forward to meet the attack. Within seconds, the darkness of space above the planet filled with streaks of bright energy as the first weapons fired. Inside the command chamber, the battle looked almost silent through the holographic display. But every officer in the room understood the chaos happening beyond the atmosphere. Fighter pilots were racing through space at impossible speeds, missiles and energy blasts flashing across the battlefield while large warships exchanged heavy cannon fire from across thousands of kilometers. Ethan studied the tactical movements carefully and quickly noticed something unusual about the enemy strategy. The Zareth ships were not attacking the planet directly, and they were not targeting the main defense fleet either. Instead, their fighter groups were focusing on specific defense satellites positioned around the planet. One by one, those satellites were being destroyed with careful precision. Ethan stepped closer to the tactical display and pointed toward the pattern forming across the map. He explained that the enemy was not trying to win the battle quickly. They were slowly clearing a path through the outer defenses, creating a safe corridor for something larger to enter the system. The officers around him began studying the map more carefully, and within seconds they realized he was correct. The Zareth fighters were deliberately opening a gap in the defense network. Before anyone could respond, another urgent message arrived from the deep space scanners positioned beyond the star system. A second Zareth fleet had just appeared from hyperspace, much larger than the first, and it was already moving toward the weakened section of the Orenthian defense grid. The command chamber erupted into urgent activity as the full-scale danger became clear. The first fleet had been only a distraction, a force designed to keep the Empire's defenses busy while the true invasion force approached from another direction. The enemy had planned this attack with frightening precision. Princess Lyara watched the unfolding battle with steady determination, even as the situation grew more dangerous. She knew that if the second fleet reached the planet's orbit, the capital world itself could become a battlefield. Millions of civilians lived below in the shining cities of Orenthos, and the Empire could not allow war to reach the surface. Ethan continued studying the tactical data, and suddenly another thought formed in his mind. If the enemy truly wanted to invade the capital, they would have attacked with both fleets at the same time. but instead they had waited until Ethan began investigating the archives connected to his father. The timing was too exact to be coincidence. A quiet realization passed through him as he looked again at the approaching enemy ships. The Zareth Dominion was not here simply to conquer Orinthos. They were here for him. High above the battlefield, inside the dark command bridge of the largest Zareth warship, the enemy commander watched the conflict unfold with calm patience. His fleet was performing exactly as planned. The distraction attack had successfully drawn the Orinthian fleet away from the outer region of the system, leaving the deeper space routes nearly unguarded. The commander turned slightly toward the navigation officer and gave a quiet order. "Prepare the stealth carrier," he said slowly. A hidden warship separated from the main fleet and quietly activated its cloaking systems, disappearing from the battlefield while the rest of the Zareth forces continued fighting. The invisible ship then changed direction and began moving silently toward the far edge of the star system, toward the distant path that eventually led to the forgotten Velcaris system. The commander's plan was simple. If Ethan Cole wanted to uncover the secret left by Daniel Cole, he would eventually travel to Velcaris. And when that moment came, the enemy would be waiting for him in the darkness of space. The battle above Orinthos had now turned into full chaos, but inside the royal command chamber, the leaders of the Orinthian Empire were slowly realizing that the situation was even more dangerous than they first believed. The massive holographic display showed two Zareth fleets moving through the system, while hundreds of small fighter ships clashed around the glowing defense grid of the capital world. Bright explosions appeared across the tactical map as satellites were destroyed and damaged. Ships drifted silently through space. The war had truly begun, and every second now mattered. Ethan Cole stood near the center of the command table watching the battlefield carefully. His mind was working faster than ever before, studying every movement of the enemy forces, trying to understand their real goal. Many officers in the room were still focused on protecting the planet itself, but Ethan could already see that the enemy plan was more complicated than a simple invasion. The Zareth Dominion had sent a second larger fleet and was deliberately creating pressure across multiple areas of the defense grid, forcing the Orinthian commanders to spread their fleet thinner and thinner. Princess Lyara stood beside him, her calm expression hiding the weight of responsibility she carried. Even though she was still young, she had been trained since childhood to lead her people during times of crisis. She listened carefully as the generals gave their reports, but her attention kept returning to Ethan, because deep inside she trusted his instincts more than many of the experienced officers around her. Suddenly, Ethan noticed something strange within the tactical display. One of the Zareth warships had briefly appeared on the scanners and then vanished completely. At first it looked like a sensor error, but Ethan studied the data more closely and realized the ship had activated a cloaking system before changing direction. It was no longer part of the main battle. It was moving away from the conflict entirely, heading toward the distant edge of the system. Ethan immediately understood the meaning behind that movement. The enemy commander had never planned to win the battle above Orinthos. The entire attack was simply a distraction designed to keep the Orinthian fleet busy while one hidden ship escaped toward a different destination. And Ethan already knew exactly where that ship was going. Velcaris, the Forgotten Star system connected to the secret his father had left behind. Ethan quickly explained his theory to Princess Lyara and the commanders gathered in the chamber. At first, several officers doubted his conclusion, because abandoning a major battle in order to chase a single hidden ship seemed risky. But the more they studied the data, the more his explanation made sense. The enemy commander clearly believed that whatever secret Daniel Cole had hidden in the Velcaris system was more valuable than even capturing the Orinthian capital. Lyara made a bold decision in that moment. She ordered a small fast strike group of ships to leave the battlefield and intercept the cloaked enemy carrier before it could escape the system. The mission would be extremely dangerous because the ship's cloaking technology made tracking it very difficult. But if the enemy reached Velcaris first, they might discover the same secret Daniel Cole had died protecting. Ethan volunteered immediately to join the strike mission, even though many officers still doubted him. Lyara supported his decision without hesitation, because she believed this moment was connected not only to the Empire's future, but also to the truth about Ethan's father. Within minutes, a sleek Orinthian battlecruiser and several escort fighters launched from the planet's orbit and accelerated toward deep space, leaving the massive battle behind them. Inside the cruiser, Ethan sat beside the navigation officers while they followed the faint signals left behind by the cloaked enemy carrier. The chase pushed both ships to incredible speeds as they raced toward the edge of the system. The dark emptiness of space surrounded them, while the glowing star of Orinthos slowly faded behind them in the distance. After several tense hours, the cruiser's sensors finally detected the cloaked carrier again. The enemy ship had already reached the outer boundary of the system and was preparing to jump into hyperspace toward Valkyris. There was only a small window of time left to stop it. The Orinthian cruiser opened fire immediately, powerful energy cannons flashing through space. As the first shots struck the enemy carrier's shield, the sudden attack forced the cloaking system to deactivate, revealing the massive Xerath vessel drifting in the darkness. Enemy fighters launched from its hangars while the cruiser's escorts rushed forward to intercept them. Another fierce battle began far away from the main war above Orinthos. Inside the cruiser, Ethan studied the carrier structure and noticed something important. The ship's hyperspace engines were already charging, meaning the enemy commander planned to escape even while fighting. If the engines reached full power, the carrier would vanish into hyperspace and reach Valkyris long before anyone could stop it. Thinking quickly, Ethan suggested a risky plan to the cruiser captain. Instead of continuing the long-range attack, the cruiser would move directly toward the carrier and target its hyperspace core with a concentrated strike. It was dangerous because it required flying straight through enemy fire, but it was the only way to stop the carrier before it escaped. The captain agreed, and the cruiser accelerated forward at maximum speed, energy blasts striking its shields while escort fighters fought desperately around it. The distance between the two ships closed rapidly until the massive Xerath carrier filled the entire forward screen. At the perfect moment, the cruiser fired a powerful focused beam directly into the carrier's engine core. The explosion that followed lit the darkness of space like a second star. The carrier's hyperspace engines collapsed instantly, sending shock waves through the entire vessel. Within seconds, the giant ship lost power and began drifting helplessly through space. The enemy commander had been stopped. Hours later, the battle above Orinthos finally ended as the remaining Xerath fleets retreated from the system. Their mission had failed, and the Orinthian Empire had survived the attack. When Ethan returned to the capital world, he was greeted not with suspicion, but with respect. News of the battle and his role in stopping the enemy carrier had spread quickly through the fleet and across the empire. Inside the Grand Royal Hall, thousands of citizens and soldiers gathered as Princess Lyara stepped forward to speak before the crowd. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber as she told the story of the human who had saved her life in the ruined city and later helped protect the entire empire from a hidden enemy plan. When she finished speaking, she turned toward Ethan with a warm smile. The same words she had spoken during their first meeting returned once again, but now they carried a new meaning. "I thought I would never see you again," she said softly. This time the words were not meant for the memory of the father who had saved her years ago. They were meant for the son who had proven that courage, loyalty, and honor could change how the entire galaxy saw humanity. And from that day forward, the name Ethan Cole would no longer belong to a mysterious human outsider. It would belong to the hero who helped unite two worlds and reminded the galaxy that even the newest civilization among the stars could rise when courage was needed most.